Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Legend of Korra Book 2 Spirits episode commentary. This is going to be my episode commentary for K205 Peacekeepers, 5th episode of Book 2 Spirits. This one is going to start with the opening, the commentary track, so get your episode ready to go, including that Fire, Earth, Air, Water opening with the avatars. I'm going to stop speaking now in a moment. And then when I start speaking again after that silence, that's when you hit play and then you'll be synced up with my commentary track. So, gonna stop speaking now. Okay, so here we are with Peacekeepers, 5th episode of Book 2 Spirits. Honestly, when I first watched this episode, I was a bit disappointed with it. Even going into the Legend of Korra podcast that I do for this, for Avatar The Last Airbender Online.com, the Avatar Online podcast, we do reviews of each of these episodes, basically the Sunday after each episode airs, and I was going into that pretty negative on the episode. But what I got out of that discussion, because obviously I host that podcast, so I usually let the others go first before I give my own opinions, is that they really pointed out some of the complexities involved behind like why the characters make the decisions they do. So why Raiko doesn't help, why Mako feels the way he does, why Korra feels the way she does. There's a lot of little complexities once you look past the obviousness of what happens in the episode. So we see Lin Beifong for pretty much the first time this season, which is interesting enough. But interesting stuff straight away. She's being kind of blamed for starting a war when there's a lot more to it than just, oh, Korra started a war, let's blame her for everything. Mako's obviously back to his duty, and she's very focused on showing that she supports the South, and Lin obviously says like, you shouldn't really be doing this so much. Like, you can't just support one side, even though you're kind of correct. You kind of have to remain neutral, and maybe that's one of the problems with Korra in these kind of early episodes here. She's very eager to kind of support her own people when they did kind of try and kidnap Unalaq, even though whether or not you can justify that or not really. Like, but she did say, make them stand trial when he was going to just throw them in prison for no reason, really, without a trial. But Mako obviously leaves Bolin kind of out there, which then when you come back around to what happens to Mako when he's arrested and stuff like that, and Bolin becomes the movie star, there's a big switch in their positions. Like, Mako's at his lowest point when Bolin was previously at his lowest point at the start of the book, ignored by Mako, and then when he needs him, he can't obviously help Mako too much. But obviously Unalaq protecting the spirit portals, not wanting anyone to get into the spirit world, as is later revealed what those portals are for. Obviously some nice stuff here with Eska Desna. She's still upset after her failed wedding, which is a funny thing to say in Korra, that she was literally going to have the wedding that night, and Unalaq doesn't mention a single thing about it. Further showing that he doesn't really care about them. Like, he doesn't even notice, like, is there any reason you were, like, crying or anything like that? It's just these little moments. Like, does he ever show that he cares for them at all in the whole series? Not really. And we get the side plot in this episode being Tenzin spending time with Milo. We've had his moment with Iki from, like, the last episodes. Here's his time with Milo, and then later on in episodes like The Guide, we get his time with Jinora, learning to trust her to be Korra's spiritual guide. I really like that there's just this kind of arc, not necessarily going towards the conclusion of the series, but just for Tenzin as a character, where he just shows, him being with his kids and what he's like as a father to them, especially with the whole idea of Aang maybe wasn't the best father to his kids. Tenzin showing what he is, so he's helping Milo train his pet lemur here, Pokey, and you see him learn something from this, what he goes through with Milo here, about just having fun with some stuff as opposed to making it kind of a training sort of stuff. But here we get a protest. This was obviously the thing in the trailer. A lot of people thought was like a funeral or something like that because really sad music was played over it in the initial Book 2 Spirit trailer. But it's actually a protest, a kind of peace protest from the Southerners towards the Northerners to basically, stop occupying us. And here's a key point we see: obviously the bombing, which, considering like this is a Nickelodeon show, to have basically a terrorist attack happen in the episode, as happened in book one, is pretty like mature for a show. And just like they just blow up a cultural center. We assume most of the people were outside just because there was a protest going on that involved most people of most of the water tribe people, but some people must have got hurt in there, and we later see that this was kind of organized by Varric, as opposed to maybe some of the speculation about it being Unalaq while the episodes were happening. But Mako's the only one to see who actually does it. We see the detonator come out there. They were firebenders, and he was the only one who saw this, and that's a key point that they do here. And we also saw Mako kind of doing some pretty amazing firebending to kind of quell the flames. There's Sokka's statue right there. And obviously Korra blames it on the Northern Water Tribe straight away. But Mako has direct intro about it. And the one bit about in this whole kind of series, I think, where I just don't agree with Korra. Most of the time I'd be on her side about things, but the fact that she just ignores Mako saying, I fought some firebenders who had a detonator in their hands, and she's just like, I was the Northerners. When it was actually the Southerners is pretty just like, you can really kind of blame for feeling a bit annoyed by her character at that moment. Feel like you're getting hit with a rock all the time. So here we get some of the movers here for the first time. That voice actor is brilliant. Look, it's Pauline! That's some pretty nice voice acting, and he's just treated like a god by these people because he's a local pro bender, and they kind of treat him like a god basically, as is the case with most famous people. And then he gets an interview with Shiro Shinobi, which I think is brilliant, and this is a really funny scene. Like, you don't often think about this episode as being a funny one, but here he starts like making the crowd feel really kind of sad and not knowing what to say. But then he just uses that kind of pro wrestling style, promo style, to just go, the crowd is the best. It's just like, look where we are, we're in Republic City, to just get the crowd going again. He's good with a microphone, that boy. And then it happens again. It's really well done scene with regards to the humor. Just like these fans, yeah, it goes straight back to it. Cheap pop from the crowd. That's a classic Mick Foley there from wrestling. And then Varric wants to use this to further his goals, basically. Republic City or fans, that's how you get the crowd's help in Republic City. And Varric's going to use Bolin's natural popularity to his advantage. And this is kind of Bolin finding what he's meant to do. He's this person that people can really get behind just because he knows what to do with the crowds. And then we meet President Raiko, the president who tries to not do anything but do everything at the same time. He's a very ineffectual president in terms of like what he's trying to do. For the most part, he just comes across as a guy who just wants to protect his position and maybe get voted in for another term of office. And he's just like, I'm concerned by this, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm very saddened by these events, but I'm not sending any troops. And he just doesn't do anything. Like, he even says he's going to like organize a meeting between Unalaq and for like peace talks. But like the fact that he doesn't do it straight away, and he's more concerned about Korra maybe going off doing something, actually trying to do something, it tells a lot, I think, about what he's trying to do. He doesn't want any drama to happen, but his inactivity, his kind of Kuruk-esque attitude of just let's just not do anything and hopefully it'll work out for me, basically kind of gets the city attacked and like a bit wrecked by the end of the book. Like, he is responsible for a lot of this stuff, and he is showing a kind of lack of understanding for what's going on. But at the same time, as I said at the start, I was disappointed not to be in the podcast. Just like you do understand his position as the president, and that he is the president of this place where people of all four nations live, and he can't just say, "That's our war now" as well. He mentions, I think, I'm not sure if it's in that scene that just happened or a scene that's going to happen, but he mentions that they're not his people. Like the South doesn't really involve him that much. But I don't know how we can say that when earlier on in this episode we saw a protest with water tribe people who are fundamentally from there that have just come to live in the city out there protesting about stuff that's happening in the south because they are connected to the south even though they are I suppose technically a city nation of their own. And that's the thing I don't think Raiko gets. And I really hope it is addressed again that just because Republic City's out on its own doesn't mean that it has to ignore everything that's happening elsewhere. And that, you know, there was a bombing that happened in his city around people talking, protesting about something that's happened in the south, which means that he has to do something, I think. And he just investigates the stuff that happens in his city and ignores the root of the problem. But we saw just before a minute ago, the start of a little fight between Mako and Korra, which eventually results in their breakup. Which I think the way it was done is like a good scene. The big problem I have with some of the shipping in Korra is just that the scenes that happen are good. I just don't like the direction they're going in. Like they just need to solidify some of the relationships. But this is a funny scene here with Varric, and he really just makes himself as this really hilarious, odd character in these early episodes. Like this is how he comes up with ideas. He has a rig installed on board, and he just eats peppers and hangs upside down to come up with ideas. That's brilliant. And we have a General Iroh name drop. Everyone was happy when this happened. We're gonna see some Iroh this season. And then he comes up with a thing that links together all of their problems. He's going to help the South, and he's going to help Asami with her money problems with the business. If you can't, and that's basically Varric admitting, I'm going to make money off this thing because I'm in business with Asami, and he basically caused the war to happen to to make this happen, basically improve his position. So there's that too. And then the idea for like Nuktuk Hero of the South is a propaganda kind of film against the North for the South, and that's kind of what gets to people's attention since it's a big talking point. So a lot of stuff you really see that it's kind of obvious that Varric's behind it all, even before the eventual kind of reveal that happens. But yeah, we see the first hint of the movers. He's actually been recording stuff in the south with the Unalak's village, and they're going to do the propaganda film. Nuktuk, Hero of the South. Bolin's going to be playing a waterbender, and they're just like, okay, how does this affect us? And again, there is this kind of little plot in this book of the whole brothers and their different positions in life. Mako, before he's like completely ignored by people over what happened and gets arrested, framed. He's in the kind of top position. He knows what he wants to do with his life. Bolin doesn't. But now we're seeing Bolin find himself as a public figure, famous person with the whole movie roles, and their situations in the book really do flip at a certain point in an episode. Basically, the next two episodes, more or less, we see that happen. And we come back to Air Temple Island. Established dominance, he's in charge. And he's asking Milo here to be kind of this harsh person who he at heart is not naturally, because we know Milo's this kind of random, kind of funny kid. He's not used to being this kind of like person who has to be kind of tough on this animal. Like even Aang wasn't like that, and you definitely see the kind of how different of a character at heart Tenzin is in this episode. Like you're the leader. Like that's what he really thinks of himself. He's the leader of the kind of air nomads right now, airbenders right now. He has to be this commanding person, and he's kind of teaching Milo that way. And at the end, he realizes that like, oh, I've created a monster by kind of teaching him like really seriously, and just like ignore all that, just go off and have fun. And there's that I know bit that he knows it's hard being like the the leader, but he learns just like he's a kid, have fun. Just like with Korra, he was taking it really seriously when Korra maybe wanted some more fun stuff, just learning the moves and doing that sort of stuff. And he learns from his interactions with his kids just how to better kind of handle himself around Korra. In that, a lot of people blame Korra for the breakup of their kind of mentor relationship, but there was definitely a hint of him not knowing how to like handle her properly. He's kind of treating her as like his fourth kid as opposed to like this person he's meant to teach. And we see Lu and Gan here basically get Mako in trouble, and when he's the only one who actually has any sort of evidence, and they're ignoring him, Lin's ignoring him, and a lot of people hate the writing for the way it portrays Lin, yet it's never actually been established in the book that Lin is like a master detective or anything like that. Actually find it an interesting character kind of trait for Lynn, that she has this kind of issue that if you're low down in the police force, she doesn't tend to like really listen to you, and that's something that she develops through over the course of this book, and that she like realizes by the end of the kind of book that I should be like trusting people that I trust as opposed to like just thinking about rank position in the police. Um, I actually find she has like an interesting arc, even though I wouldn't call it an arc. It's just a little thing in her personality where she has this kind of like you're a rook, the don't listen to rookie mentality, and she gets past that when she fires Lu and Gon, who basically were acting like the rookies, the way she thought the rookies acted. And Mako actually has a sense of initiative and like cleverness to him, where he is actually going to be a good detective, while the other two are just like idiots. So I don't think it's bad writing the way they do Lane, just because Lane is not treated as this kind of like perfect character who just kicks people and makes perfect, the perfectly sassy lines. I think that's just an issue that people have with the way they kind of see Lane as a character, that she's identical to Toph, but she's an adult in a position of power. She's not perfect in that position as chief of police. And Iroh wants to actually help Korra, obviously because he definitely listens to the avatars like his grandfather did. But then Raiko comes in, ruins the party, and again he's just focusing on don't get the city involved in this sort of thing. And again he's not doing anything to help her when as I explained earlier, this issue may not directly affect the city, but it really does, because a third of the city is made up of Water Tribe people, because it is people coming from. There's a few airbenders. You can't really say that they consist of a fourth of the city, but it is a third Fire Nation, a third Earth Kingdom, and a third Water Tribe. That's the truth about it. And he suggests that you go see the Fire Lord, who's obviously Zuko's daughter, and see Zuko, I assume, as well. Everyone was really excited when this line came up. And then here we see Ginger once again in her costume, and the first day on set, I suppose, for Bolin as Nuktuk. And he already has ideas for advertisement in film. And the funny thing about that line is that advertising red hair dye in his film won't work, because it's obviously in black and white, so no one will actually see how the colors work. But anyway, it's pretty interesting. And here's where Korra finds out that Mako may have actually told about what she was going to do with getting Iroh involved. And then Milo showing how good of a trainer he is, how good of an alpha lemur he is. And that's as far as Tenzin thought he'd go, just teach the one. But Milo got so into it because Tenzin was so serious about the whole thing that he trained every lemur on the island, that it's just so absurd and random that it works perfectly for Milo, and that he was a bit more serious in this episode, but he still does something completely insane. His army of lemurs here. I thought they were going to come back, like in the end, that like they'd be confronted by some spirits. He'd call them in and they'd scare them off, but they didn't. I assume they'll come back maybe at some other points. Milo has that now, that connection with animals, and there's that line I said: just go off and have fun. Don't think too seriously about this. Ignore most of what I told you. It's just a fun little thing that he's learned not to be so serious about some of this stuff. And here's the thing: neither of them respecting, understanding each other's point of view here in the Mako Korra argument. Mako didn't think about Korra's family who are at risk in this situation, only thinking about his job. At the same time, Korra is not thinking about the position that Mako's in, as like basically he has to speak to the president. He takes his orders from the president more or less, and they just break up here in the heat of the moment over these kind of huge decisions over what to do over a war in the south. For me, this just comes across as heat of the moment breakup, not like fundamentally we are different people, we can never come back together as a couple, which by the end of the book is the whole thing that happens in the second breakup once Korra remembers the first breakup. Um, I just find it just didn't work in terms of there wasn't a moment in this book where I kind of went to myself watching the episodes. Mako and Korra just don't work as a couple. For me, the early episodes showed that they actually are strong enough as a couple to get through these little problems they have, and this is such a kind of crazy situation that I don't think it's something to really base a complete we can never be together as a couple ever again breakup moment on, as happened at the end of this book. The breakup made sense in the episode here as it was because, okay, heated in a moment, they break up, that makes sense. That puts Korra in a really bad position come the end of like this episode, going into beginnings coming up soon. She's knocked out, she doesn't remember anything, she's also broken up with her boyfriend. It presents her in this like really low moment, nothing's kind of quite gone right for her. But just on the whole, the kind of Mako Makora relationship arc just didn't kind of fit together. Like all the pieces, like you think they make one puzzle that makes sense, but it makes a completely other puzzle that just the writers felt needed to happen for some reason. I hope it's addressed more in like the next books, but I'll stop talking about the relationships for now. Really good action scene here with Korra, Eska, Desna, and then a giant dark spirit coming up. Korra using the light bending technique in the Avatar state. I thought this was going to work right here. That she was just going to do the move properly because she's in the Avatar state, but it doesn't quite work yet. She's not quite spiritual enough to fully use this ability just yet. And we end the episode with Korra getting eaten apparently, or at least badly attacked by a huge dark spirit, and the twins thinking that she's just been killed by a dark spirit, and they're not going to tell Mako Korra, so they're just going to think she's missing for the time being, and that's a really crazy way to end the episode, with just your main character presumed dead by most of the cast, and Unalaq will be happy. Will be kind of happy in one way that Korra's out of the picture, but bad in the other, and that he actually does need her to open the portal, which is a big moment where he gets angry in the next episode, I think. But yeah, an episode that has just rose so high in my own opinions since I've kind of first watched it. I was kind of down at the episode just because I wasn't really looking into the actions of the characters too much. But during the podcast, the other people on the podcast, I think it was Troy, Rich, Kelly, they went in depth on the characters and their actions, and that really pointed out a lot of stuff that I'd missed in my first watch of this episode. And now going through it here, kind of analysing it myself, I really saw a lot of that in action watching it now, and it was just it is actually a really good episode, even though I still probably would consider this or maybe the next episode to be the weakest of the book. But that just comes down to the fact that I think that book two on the whole is a very strong book of Korra. There are 14 good episodes, but obviously the Sting up next, and then Beginnings, which I'm so excited to talk about. But yeah, thanks for listening to this episode commentary, and bye.